Hello, everyone. My name is John McCormick, and today I'll be interviewing a very talented writer and author, Dorothy Robey. She just recently published her second novel, which is titled What She Didn't Know. And we're going to talk about that today, and because it's very exciting news. And then also, I just want to welcome you, Dorothy.
Thank you for having me and for
Yeah,
interviewing me.
yeah. And how are you doing this evening, or this today, rather?
I'm doing good. I'm good. Good. It's,
Okay, good.
it's been a
Well,
snowy day, so
Well, I
snowy
know the
day.
yeah. Well, the last time we talked was on my radio show. So this is like a different forum for us to use. And I think I'm going to like it. It's so much more personal, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah. Now, the last time we chatted, you had just published your first debut novel, which is Passage of Promise. Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that book?
Uh, yes, it came out May 1st of 2020, and it was about a woman named Marina, and she was sent to Greece because her nephew was very ill with a serious illness, and she was sent there to find her grandmother's uh, miraculous icon. Because her mother and grandmother were certain that that would help him. And so she was sent there. And there's all the adventures that happen there on trying to find the icon. Because when she gets there, it's not where it's supposed to be. So, and then she goes
Right,
through that, and then she has these dynamics with her family members that aren't too good. so
right.
so she has to work through her family's conflicts as well as dealing with her nephew's illness.
Right, right. Well, I really enjoyed reading it. It really made me feel like I was part of the story, because of the way you described the scenes and the feelings and everything, I could just, feel like I was there. So it was really, I really loved it. It's
Oh,
great. And you've been busy. I mean, within a year, you published first that novel, and then you just now published your new novel, and that was just this year in March.
yeah.
So, I mean, you've been busy during this pandemic. I mean, it didn't slow you down in your writing, did it?
No, no, but I've been kind of constantly writing for about 5 or 6 years. So it's good that you always have a project, that you don't have writer's block.
No, that's great. When I first, the pandemic started, it kind of gave me a little bit of a writer's block, but then I got back into the groove. But you always inspire me as a writer. I mean, you just, you're just amazing. You're always producing something, working on something. And we're going to talk about all that today to let everyone know what you're going to be working on and what you've been working on. Now, I know last time we talked also, we talked a little bit about when you first started writing, you were only 12 years old. So we are going to talk about that. But first, I'd like to talk about your new novel, and, what she didn't know. Can you tell us like a description of what that novel's about?
Yes, it's basically it's about three sisters who grow up with a abusive, physically abusive, alcoholic father, and what that does to them. They end up with a lot of internal wounds, um, and basically the story is to show three different perspectives on how their childhood affected them. So that was the whole purpose of showing what happens to these kids in their adult life and how they deal with getting through past hurts and wounds. And each character has a distinctive way of dealing with it. So, and in
Absolutely.
between that, you have twists and surprises in the story, of course, and conflicts. And
I'm going to tell you, when I read it, it was just really engaging. I mean, I just kept turning the pages, and it was just one drama after another
I
drama.
know.
I mean, it was always, I mean, you just have, like you mentioned, you have your main characters, but you have so many other characters with their stories too, that's in the book. And it's just chock full of just action and drama and, and it was just amazing. It was amazing. I'd like to talk to you about the process, that you went through to publish your novels. So what, when did you start writing your novel, What She Didn't Know?
Okay, so that one was started in January 2018. And then I finished it July 2019, as far as the rough draft, getting the first draft done. And
Oh,
then
okay.
and I've been, revising and working through. So
So what inspired you to write it? I mean, how did you come up with these characters?
I did not have an inspiration for that. It just popped in my head as far as the characters. They popped in my
Okay.
head. And then a plot came. And I know that I wanted to write something that had a lot to do with the human condition, because I love to read books with that. And I wanted to do something that was more profound, something that was deep, that would be, and with characters that are totally broken and flawed. So that, to the point where when I wrote those characters, I kind of figured that probably the readers would gravitate to one of the sisters more than the others, because they'll relate to one of them, and they may not like one of the others, because I figured that would happen, where they'd be like,
Yes,
"Oh, I can't
yes.
stand what's her name," one of those, because it's what they go, what they relate to, how they feel about it. Everybody has a favorite sister, which one they like, and so.
I had a favorite too,
Which one?
Glory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was
Yeah,
my favorite.
that's exactly my editor's favorite too.
And there
Editors
was
are my
and there
friend.
was one I didn't like in the beginning too. Yes. I said, wow, she really is a character.
I know, but I did try to make them well-rounded, where even if you don't like them, you can understand them and you can feel for them in a different way with their own struggles. So,
Right, right. Well, I know in your first novel, and even on this novel, you touched on it, and it was like faith-based a little bit. And so how important is that to you, to have your faith in your writing?
um, it's something that's organic. It's not something okay, I'm going to put this in. It just happens organically. It's naturally, because that's just my life. It's my lifestyle. So it'll always bleed in there. There's only a couple of books I've done that don't have any of my faith.
Right,
So there's always something. If I'm writing something of length, I tend to put it in there. But I have a couple of short stories that don't. It just,
right.
but I mean, there's always a message. It's, there's tons of messages in What She Didn't Know. And I don't know if everybody got all of them, but there's tons of them in there.
Right, 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 absolutely. Well, I know that you mentioned that you've been writing for a while. This novel started in 2019. Now, what process did you go through? I know that you mentioned to me when we talked previously on the radio show that you have a critique group that you run your chapters through. How does that work exactly?
Okay, so it's a credit-based system. So when you sign up, in order for you to submit your chapters, you have to work on other people's. So you have to critique other people's work before you can put yours through. Because in order for you to submit, you have to have 3 credits to do the first. So then you have to gain that by reading other people's work, which is I think is a good system, because then people, they have the tit for tat system that is fair to others. You return favors, so it's not one-sided.
Right,
And what's so important about that site is the support in there is really, really, really strong. It's I've been on it since 2015. So I've gained critique partners that now, anything I have out, they look at. It's, you become connected to people. So I have about a handful that I'm connected to. And they help you with plot holes, well, defining your characters, dialogue, scenes, settings, catching things that you wouldn't catch, and it really, really helps to strengthen even your sentences, just to make them more smooth and tight, because I have a tendency to start out real clunky with many words. So then they have to go in there and like, okay, let's pare these down. And so it's because of them, I think, that I would not be where I am without them and my editor, because I write the work, but it's almost like a team effort that you go
Right.
through all of that together. So,
Well, you mentioned your editor. So how did you find your editor?
we're both the members of a Facebook group called Women Writers, Women's Books. There's about 15,000 people on there, believe it or not.
Wow.
And they're all women. And we were discussing I think we were talking about plays one day. And then I brought up the fact that was probably back in 2017, 18, probably, yeah, 2018. And she helped me. We were talking about plays, and I brought up the ones that I had done recently, because that was recent when that happened, my Falling Upstairs play. And
oh, I love that. I love that play. It's recorded, you have a video on YouTube. And everyone, if you want to watch that, her channel is .r, and you can find it on there. Yeah.
It's called Falling Upstairs Performance. But I just brought that up because somebody was talking about plays, and then she said, oh yes, I do a lot of plays. And she does. She has done like 20 or something. Her name's D.A. Sarek. She's she does cozy mysteries, general, and I think maybe paranormal romance. So she has a mixture of things that she edits, but that's the main genres that I think off the top of my head that she does. And then she started, we PM'd for a little bit about helping me with my blog, because I had started it in 2016 and I didn't know how to do all the tech stuff in there. So she helped me with that. And then I said, by the way, I have this story, and an editor, do you, do free edits? And she said, yes. And so I sent her 2 or 3 chapters of Passage.
Oh, okay.
And she really, she did it. I really was impressed with her work. So, and we just, we did well together. And, again, it's like a business relationship, but a symbiotic relationship where you work together. And she is responsible for a lot of stuff. So for me, I do the writing, and I get everything set to the best I can put it, the best polished state. And then when I give it to her, she edits, and I pick which type of editing. The first one, it was a lot more involved because I didn't know what kind of editing I wanted to do. So she did all of them.
Oh, okay.
But the second one, I only did like the proofreading and line edit thing. But she does all kinds of different stuff. But she does that. She edits, proofs, formats. So she does all that. She formats all of my documents in manuscript, and she puts that into book form and ebook form for me. And then I give her, and then she also does the book cover.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that. Yes.
So I pick the picture, I give her the author bio, the blurb, all the stuff you see on the book, the praise quotes. I give her all that, and then she situates it, interior and exterior. So
she does an excellent job. I mean, both of your book covers and everything is just formatted and just looks great.
Yeah, she does a really good job.
So now, after you edit it, you need to find a publisher. So what's that process been for you? How did you find your publisher?
I Googled earlier on a few years ago, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to go traditional or self. And I figured, I really didn't have the patience to do traditional, to be honest.
Right.
I don't have time. I'm getting older, and I was like, I just want to get these out. So I just made sure I had everything in best shape I could. That was the most important thing to me, is professional, as clean as it could be. And she, I found Ingram Sparks through Google, and I started watching their webinars and all this. And I thought, well, I don't know if I can do this on my own. Well, my editor helped me through all that, my dashboard and everything. She took it step by step the first time. The second time was a little bit easier. I'm hoping it gets easier every time. But yeah, so it's good. It's you just go through their dashboard, and you upload your files and your book cover, and she calculates out, and I tell her what size book I want it to be. I just choose in there, and it tells you what kind, color of the page, everything.
Wow. Okay.
So, and then you set that up for a date you want it to be published, and they put it out. It's called Enable Distribution. So the only thing they changed on that is now they don't, the email or the ebooks. You used to be able to look at proofs like you can for the print, but they don't for the ebooks. They just send it out right. So I thought, I don't know if this is all right. So I had to buy my own to look in it.
Right. Yeah.
But it's a good system because they go out to thousands of places. It's a lot more wide range of retailers and libraries and all kinds of things. So
That's great. That's great. Now I noticed, this time, well, Passage of Promise, you wrote in your name, Dorothy Robey, and then What She Didn't Know, you used a pen name, so Dorothy Anna. So what made you decide to do that?
Well, because I'm going through a divorce, I didn't know if I was going to keep my surname, so I thought it'd be safer to just use a pen name, whatever it comes out to be. So that's what that was. Yeah.
Well, now there's different ways to get a hold of your work, copies of your books and everything else. I just wanted to mention a couple of ways. You've got Amazon, you've got Barnes and Noble, you're globally, you've got the Kindle, like you mentioned, and then when I checked online, you have all 5-star reviews. I mean, congratulations.
Yeah.
And I really encourage everyone to get copies of both your books, and to also make sure, too, that they give you a review, that would be great. Now, was there anything else you wanted to talk about with What She Didn't Know that we missed?
I consider that my breakout book.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's my pinnacle. It's the meatiest. It's the most deep. And I urge people to read it because there's just so much to it. But also, you asked about the book cover, and
Yes.
I use a site called Deposit Photos, and you can get like 10 pictures for a really affordable price. So you get 10 free for you just have 10, and then you can just keep using 10 of them, and it's under that price, which is cheap compared to other things. So that's what I do, and then I just pick what I want for my book covers, like that, and then I give it to my editor, obviously. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I meant to ask you about that too. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it. Yeah. Well, here you are, published author twice, and but you started a long time ago when you were only 12 years old, and you used your father's electric typewriter to write your first short story. Now, what was that first short story about?
Yes, and I used my fingers like this
Oh,
because
you did?
because I didn't know how to, I was too young, but I did peck. Actually, I started my first story I wrote in like 4th or 5th grade.
Oh, okay.
It was called Mr. Square. It was just a tiny little thing, and it was like 7 pages, but I had illustrated it because I like to draw too.
Oh, okay.
I would do that. Yeah, make stories and draw,
Oh,
So
okay.
this story that I did when I was about 12 or 13 was called A Stuffed House. And it basically it's the antics of a large family, and it's the main character is the oldest child, and it's a humorous book.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be in a big family, So I liked to write with like so many siblings.
Right, right.
And um, that's what that was about. It was just a fun thing. And I actually used loose leaf paper to write that. So I cut them in half and I put them in the roller
Oh,
book.
okay.
And then I would type on that vertical piece. It's kind of funny, but that's what I thought was
No, that's great.
kind
That's
of
great.
staple it or, set it up on the sides that look like a book.
Now, was this when you first realized you wanted to be a writer, or was it later on?
I
Or
think I started to get that picture then, and then in my teens for sure.
oh, okay. Were there any authors or books, that kind of inspired you to write?
It's funny because I've never answered that before until now. It came back to me and I thought, okay, I know what that is. And what it was is I was not a reader. I hated to read when I was a kid. I had reading comprehension problems. I couldn't, it was agonizing trying to read when I was in grade school. But, teachers would read books back then. So to you out loud. So my fourth grade teacher would read books and, you'd listen. And one of those books was Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing by Judy Blume. And
Okay.
I loved that. So I thought that was funny. And then she read that at the class. And then on my own, I read Otherwise Known as Sheila the Great. And I had fun with that. And I think that's kind of what inspired me to write more of the stuffed house and the kids kind of books.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's how I started with.
Well, it sounds like you did a lot of writing, in your teenage years.
Did, yes.
Now, I understand we spoke about this before that you did a trilogy about a family in the Civil War era. So, how did that come about? What inspired you to write that?
Well, that one was from the miniseries North and South. So I saw that when I was about 16. Totally totally captivated me. Enough that I watched it all, at least book 1 and 2, and then I went back and read those.
Oh,
So
okay.
I watched the movie, then I read them. And John Jakes was the one that really propelled me into loving to read and to write. So his writing was just so amazing, very authentic, for the time period. And so that's where I got my idea to write my trilogy. I remember the first book's name, but I don't remember the others. But it actually, my dad gave me an idea, and I thought it was a good one. It was called The Rebel Rose, because the main character was a woman, but she was from the South. And I thought, well, that's kind of neat. So he was my inspiration. And after that, I went back and I read his whole Kent Family Chronicles books. There's like 8 of them.
Oh,
And they
okay.
pre-revolutionary time all the way to the turn of the century. So I
Wow.
was actually learning all my history
Yeah, yeah.
more than I was in history class.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Now, your trilogy now, were they short stories or were they novels or?
I think they were pretty long. I typed them on my dad's typewriter, but also my dad had at that time, you're probably going to laugh. You're going to remember this. The Commodore 64 computer, he had one of those. And so I wrote on that, I typed on that for a while, but I would say it was probably, and this were on regular sheets. So anywhere between 100 and 200 pages. So
Oh,
it was
wow.
long. It was pretty long.
Well, they were like novellas in a way.
Yeah, they were pretty long. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great, great.
Oh,
Well, now, in your early 20s, you were a member of the Rocky Mountain Writers Guild, and you wrote a novel about 2 orphaned sisters. So, can you tell us a little bit about that?
That one was long. That was 350 pages.
Wow.
In the system and typed up. And back then when I was in the Writers Guild, you would actually print out your chapters, and then you would go this was up in Boulder, Colorado, and I would meet with people on this table and we would exchange our chapters. And then the next time we met, we would discuss what we read and they would critique, and then we would discuss it, each book.
Oh, nice.
It was fun. We had a leader there. He was a published author, and it was fun. I did that for a few months before I moved, and I really loved it. It was this story, is supposedly written in the 50s, and it was two sisters, and both their parents died, and so they ended up in an orphanage, and they were adopted in separate families.
Oh,
And so one person has a good experience and the other one doesn't.
oh, okay.
So there's a different, and there was a story and of course what inspired me then was soap operas. So it was very soap opera-y.
Oh, okay.
very much drama in that. And the only thing is, at that time I didn't know all the rules for writing. So I didn't know all the point of views and how the rules are in that. I didn't know about the character arc. I didn't know about the structure, authenticity for the time period.
Right,
So
right.
if I were to go back to that, I would have to do a lot of work in fixing that up.
Yeah, isn't that funny? You go back to your previous work after you've written for a long time, and then you're like, oh wow, this needs a lot of work.
Yes, but I still was able to create a story, and did have I had that whole thing in there, the beginning, middle, and end, and what was needed in there, but I didn't really know all the rules. So it was kind of neat
Right.
that I did have that.
Well, now after doing that, now I understand you got married to your husband, Troy, and then you have two sons, and then you picked up your writing again in September of 2014. This was also the time you went back to school.
Yes.
And graduated from Southern New Hampshire University in June of 2019. And you got a degree in English and creative writing. So that's really cool. Now, what made you decide to write again? After you went through your college and everything, is that what encouraged you to just keep writing?
I actually started writing about a month before I got into the college. So
Oh, okay.
I was homeschooling in Massachusetts for a couple of years for my kids, and I became interested in what I was learning from my from my youngest kid. So I thought, I was such a slacker in high school. I didn't care about anything then. Now I'm looking and I said, oh, this is really neat. This is interesting. And I thought, I think I'll go back to school to actually learn. I just wanted to learn, all kinds of things. And I thought I was going to go into psychology. I thought, well, I'll go into psychology. But then I noticed that they had a program for creative writing English. And I was thrilled over that because I didn't even know that they had those. Believe it or not.
That's great.
So I thought, hey, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change it and I'm going to go into that. And I guess at that time, a few months before that, I started to have ideas that started to pop into my mind about stories, which I hadn't had for almost 2 decades. I really was not having anything till now. So I always think it's like God's time. He picks the time when you're not heavily involved with your kids and all the things I went through with my special needs child. I think this was the time when they thought, okay, I have the time. I can do the school and I can do the writing. And so I started writing in September, and then I went back to school in October. So from then on, I was just.
You've written a lot of things. Your writing is varied. You've written 2 children's short stories, an inspirational novel, a humorous nature, environmental short story, a mainstream short story, and 2 lighthearted plays, which is the one that we talked about earlier, Falling Upstairs. That one again is, everyone, you gotta watch that. It's really funny. So I just wanted to ask you, let's see here. Now you also have one of your short stories, Summer Memories, that was published in Scribes Valley Publishing annual anthology in April 2018. Can you give us a description of that short story, what it was about?
I have that written down. because actually that one, yeah, I won that contest.
Oh, great.
For that, and I was one of 12 finalists, and so I'm in that book. This story is. Yeah, I just wrote it. It's a short story about a grumpy old military vet, and he watches the world from his porch.
Oh, okay.
What happens in front, at the street, and what goes on there, and his thoughts and what he thinks. And he gets a visit from his brother and his family, and things take off from there on how whatever incidents and events take place at that point. And it has a surprise twist at the end. It's a moving, poignant story. In fact, when I put that in my critique group, one of my critiquers cried.
Oh,
And so it was nice. Of course, I've heard they cried in What You Didn't Know, and that's what I always go for, the emotions, So yes, this one was. That's what that was about. It was.
you mentioned about a twist at the end. I know in What She Didn't Know, really, I mean, it keeps you guessing, what is this title? Where did she come up with this title? you know, so it keeps you just guessing to the end. And I really enjoyed that ending. I won't say what it was, but
Yeah.
yeah, we won't spoil that.
Well, I think it can be looked at plurally or singularly.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you wanted to.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Well, now, since you did write that novel, what have you done since? What are you working on?
well, I'm doing the last edits to what was formerly called Morning Dove, which is now called Behind the Stone House because it's more of a suspense. So I'm working on that, finishing up the last few chapters of editing that.
Oh, okay.
And then I have Painted with Good Intentions that I'm working on now as well, going through and fixing that. Another run through, so it's going to take a little bit to get that done, but it's really it's making really good progress, and I really love the characters in that, and it's a mixture of women's fiction, romance, supernatural orthodoxy, and humor.
Oh, okay.
It has
Great. That's a good combination.
yeah, a lot of stuff in there, and I enjoy the characters. That I really like that story. That one is set on the island of Santorini as well. So,
oh, okay.
yeah. And then I have other things I'm working on, but they're less formulated, not as I'm still writing them. And then I also went back to the Rocky Retreat, the environmental humor. Actually, it's a political farce is what it is.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, I'm going to probably put that through my critique group in a few weeks. I've never gotten the whole thing through yet, so I want to do that. The way the environment is politically, I don't know how people are going to take it. That's why they have to understand it's humor and it's a farce, and hopefully they won't take it too seriously.
Oh, okay.
No, how people take things. So it's like
that's true. Yeah, yeah.
So
well, yeah, go ahead.
That's mainly what I've been working on, and the thing, one work in progress called Relics of Life, and that's a tough one. I'm trying to figure out what to do on certain points of the main plot, and the climax of it is I haven't figured all that out yet. So
okay.
still working on it.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're busy. I mean, you haven't stopped. I mean, since you started writing, sounds like you just are always doing that. That's excellent.
I do have a short story I wrote a few years ago, actually, for my fiction writing class.
Oh, okay.
And, that one I need to bring back up. It's a short story. It's only about, between 3,000 and 4,000 words. And that one is called Remember the Daisies. And that one is about an older woman remembering her past, basically. And that's another poignant story. So I just have a lot of things I need to get out.
And you have your blog too that you write, things about. Tell us about your blog. What exactly do you write about?
Lately, I've just been putting out my announcements for my books, but sometimes I just write about certain experiences I've had in my life, my writing, struggles with that, tips on writing, holidays, information on certain traditions and holidays. And sometimes I put in my essays that I've done through my school. So there's a few in there as well. So
Oh, okay, great. And what is the name of your blog?
it's Modest Musings.
Oh, okay, sounds great. Now, do you still have Dorothy Loves to Write blog too? Oh,
That's what it's under. I mean, that's the URL, but it's called Modest Musings.
oh, okay, all
Yeah.
right, all right. And let's see what else you've been up to. Well, you have a Facebook page too, Dorothy Robey. And then again, we mentioned about your YouTube channel, .r. And is there anything else that we haven't spoken about that you'd like to talk about your writing, something that we've missed? Or
You had asked about people who have inspired me, at least when I was growing up. And it's changed obviously more now because I really am more in the women's fiction genre. It's kind of where I am most of the time. So the authors that inspire me in that, they're of course all women, and they're Kristen Hanna, Rachel Joyce, Nora Roberts, and Jodi Picoult.
oh, okay.
So they, and especially Kristen Hanna, she's my favorite. There's a book I read of hers that moved me so much I cried 4 times in that book. It's called The
Wow.
Great Alone. And I mean, the whole time I'm reading that, I could just feel that looming, it's going to come out. I know it's going to happen soon. And I'm just like, it was rare. It was a book that I read where I could just turn around. I wanted to read it right again. And so
Oh, wow.
so she is one of my inspirations. And then the others I mentioned as well, they help me to come up with things when I have time to actually read for pleasure.
I was wondering about that with all your writing.
I don't have time to read much for pleasure because I'm always reading other people's work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, because you're in your critique group too. You're giving critiques and reading. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
takes a lot of time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Like the majority of my time.
Well, I would like in the future when you have more things to share with your writing, what you have published, to come back and we can talk more about that, and find out what you've been up to. And I just want to thank you for your time today and for your interview.
Yes, well, thank you. And it was so nice to see you in person.
I know, because usually we do the radio show and it's just our voices, but I like this. I think this is really cool. So I'd love to do more interviews with you in the future. So
I'm for it.
all right, all right. Well, thank you so much. And, just finish well your day and we'll talk again soon.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.